I already got a name for this one. No, I already know the name of this episode.
You're going to sort of just keep trying to inject it into the podcast?
Should I just tell you what it is now so we can just accept that it's the name of the podcast?
I refuse.
Okay.
Chris, you want to hear some great news?
I do.
It's June 24th, 2015.
This is Idle Thumbs 216. I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Sean Vanneman.
I'm Danielle Riendo.
And I'm Jake Rodkin. And
Whoa.
Welcome back, Jake. It's been
Thanks.
weeks since you've been on this podcast.
Welcome back,
It's been
Jake.
2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say about how long it's been.
You guys were at E3.
Yeah.
Two of you were at E3, and Danielle, you were in New York covering E3.
You were
Yes.
covering E3 from your East Coast bunker.
Exactly.
So you were all either actually or virtually at E3.
correct.
Our minds were at E3.
Which was an E3 of virtual reality.
Yes. Which I tried for the first time in my life.
Oh,
this
really?
week.
Which
Yeah.
one did you try?
I tried Superhot.
I don't even know what that
Oculus.
is.
What hardware? An
Oh, the
Oculus?
game? Wait,
Yeah,
Superhot,
the game.
Oh,
Well,
which?
I tried Oculus Rift.
Okay.
Superhot.
Right.
And also a weird racing demo.
Was it the full version of Superhot that they're making? That's like an expanded version of the original thing.
They had a
I
Kickstarter.
played both, actually.
Okay.
I played the smaller demo that was optimized for Oculus, and then I played the game itself on console not on console, but on a PC, other than the Rift version.
You played it in both 2D and the 3D.
Exactly. I did.
Did you prefer one to the other?
Well, since it was my first time in the Rift,
Yeah.
it was very intense when I was in that experience. I think the game itself was more interesting. It was a later build. It was an early build that was actually in the Rift, basically. That was a super early, I don't know, maybe from last fall or so. It had kind of the old art style and everything.
Okay, so that was probably the version of the game that I played that they released
Yeah.
for free, as I recall.
Yeah.
Way back.
I've played
I
that.
feel like, me too. I feel like that game makes a lot of sense for a virtual reality game. So let me explain what Superhot is, because we didn't we just launched right into it. Yeah. So Superhot is a
Competing virtual reality hardware.
Yeah, basically.
Superhot was a first-person shooter that was made for a game jam, I believe, and I don't remember
Yeah,
what.
3D FPS, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Right. It was a game jam game where you play in first person
70
and you. Okay, so Danielle, correct me if I'm wrong here, if I'm remembering the rules of this game incorrectly.
Sure.
I believe it is a first-person shooter in which time progresses incredibly slowly, almost imperceptibly, but still forward as you stand still.
Yes.
But then as you move, time speeds up to normal speed, which means if someone fires a gun at you in the game and you just stand still, the bullet will you can just stand in the path of the bullet and it will very slowly inch towards you. And then as soon as you sidestep to get out of the way, it'll zoom past. And so you basically, what you're trying to do is position yourself in optimal standpoints and minimize the amount of time that you're running out in the open where you're more vulnerable to getting shot.
The sort of very earliest images and scenarios of Superhot seem like they're based on the hallway scenes with the agents in the Matrix, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it is very much like
what
that.
is this?
Yeah.
3 guys at the end of the hallway all shoot guns at you, and then you sort of slow down time and enter a weird Zen state as you magically, up to their perception, just dodge all of them and take their
But
ass.
what's cool is that it actually it feels like it actually captures that better than the million other games that have done bullet time, because it is entirely based on your own movement. So it's when you move, you're it's this crazy.
Well, it's a totally subjective perception. The mechanics line up to your brain's
and you don't
time
have
dilation.
you don't have to press a button to engage bullet time.
Right.
It's a sort of just fluid decision that you're constantly making, just as a secondary part of moving around the world. It's a really clever, stripped down, really smart design.
Absolutely. It is really amazing in virtual
Yeah,
reality
I
as
could
well,
totally
because you can
imagine
actually, you can look around and see the bullet sort of whizzing by
Does looking
the side of your head.
Does looking count as moving? So,
No.
so you can just look around
You
and
just look around for 10 minutes.
Time
That's
progresses.
even more Matrix-like, because in that movie, as the bullets are going by, he's
He can just
moving his
flip
head
them up.
to look around at them, and it's basically just
It's
That's
really,
cool.
really cool in VR.
Was the setup then just like a controller?
Yeah, just a controller with the headset.
With the headset?
Yeah,
Cool.
it was awesome. And then I played the newer version of the game, which is more mechanically. There's a little bit more to it. There are different kinds of weapons. You can pick up a weapon and fire it. You can have a baseball bat. You can have a katana. You can actually slice bullets in half if you get the timing right with your attack. Kind of.
That's cool.
It's really cool, and it's prettier. There's this very, extremely high contrast sort of art style to it now. Like, it's very white, clean backgrounds, and the enemies are bright red and sort of have this weird sort of sheen to them.
It's always felt like the art direction of the game, at least in the original version, was basically inspired by 90s era virtual reality,
totally.
where everything is like one of two colors because the screens were always really basic and, bright red and low poly geometry.
Yeah. It's cool. And the newest build, which was the build that was at E3 on the show floor that people played last week, they actually sent us a build too so we could play it in New York and stream it actually a little tiny bit. And it actually starts to hint at story content as well. There's sort of 4 levels, and they sort of play out like puzzles. You sort of figure out the optimal path to get to the weapon or kind of get to the bad guys and figure things out. And there's all kinds of physics going on. There is a scenario where there is like a car hitting another car, and you have to get out of the way of that, as well as enemies firing bullets at you. So it's really cool. It looks like it's already been iterated upon to the point where, hey, this makes sense. This is actually a cool next action kind of game scene that you would play next in this scenario, in this bullet time scenario. And the story that it's being hinted at, it seems kind of, VR 90s as well. Like, you don't know what's real, that whole kind of thing. But I think it fits this sort of game, and I think it fits with this atmosphere. So it's pretty cool. It was also my first time trying VR since 1995 when I tried the Aladdin experience at
That was my first time using VR as well.
That's amazing.
I've never heard of this. What is
the
the
magic carpet thing.
It's a Disneyland thing.
Yeah, it was
really?
at Disney World in Epcot, at least when I went. Imagineering.
Not Disneyland, though.
No, it was
at Disney
because
World.
Disneyland, 1995 was the first time I went to Disneyland.
No,
that's awesome.
It was the 40th anniversary.
Imagineering had a public facing, just want to see what the future of rides could be exhibit, where they just had 4 Aladdin magic carpet control things that you would sit on and strap a helmet on, and you were inside a VR version of the big city from Aladdin, and then you'd fly around on a carpet.
Agrabah.
Yeah, you're in Agrabah, and a bad 2D drawing of Gilbert Gottfried's parrot shows up and squawks at you, and then if I remember correctly, I just ran into the walls a bunch, but I was amazed that it was in 3D.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But yeah,
way back, I don't know.
20 years ago.
Yeah,
but I had not put a VR headset on between then and
classic sirens,
and just a couple months ago when I first put an Oculus Rift on.
It was super weird.
I keep so this isn't. I don't have much to say about this because I haven't thought about it deeply at all. But for whatever reason, I've seen a number of different people comment recently that, like 3D virtual reality, sort of project that virtual reality, like 3D, may never catch on in the home, but that it may have a future at theme parks. Do you guys think that there's any potential for that?
That makes sense, right? I mean, if you're already strapping into a vehicle, why not just put an industrial grade headset on, and then you don't need to make the ride?
Yeah,
That's true.
I mean, I don't. I mean,
how Star
that
Tours
feels like
works,
that feels like more of a
like Star Tours and Back to the Future have those are
pretty much
classic rides at this stage, right? But still.
It feels like a Universal Studios thing rather than a Disney thing.
Yeah,
it feels like Universal Studios leans way heavier on the video component.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the Fisherman's Wharf, big San Francisco tourist trap used to have an amusement park ride that was themed around the Terminator, but it was just what I guess is now a D-box seat in a movie theater where you'd sit down and just Arnold would say, "Come with me if you want to live," and then they just put a camera on a motorcycle and drove it around, and occasionally liquid metal would come flying, and the seats would just tip around. So I could see VR turning into the evolution of that, basically, of we could put an attraction in quotes in a thing the size of just a small office and charge a ton of money for it.
Hopefully you still get the Hopefully you still get the ride photo at the end, but it's just everybody wearing a dorky headset. Basically the ride photo, hopefully it's still the 2x8 array of people sitting in a car.
All just with their mouths open.
Yeah, all with their mouths open. It would basically look like what it looks like when you go to Google image search and you search for Will Smith Oculus and you get an entire page of just a grid of identical Will Smith wearing Oculus Rift photographs with his mouth open.
Tested Will Smith.
Tested Will Smith, not the
Fresh
actor.
Prince.
We talked about that picture last week on the
Fresh
podcast.
Prince.
Yeah.
I also tried an Oculus demo for, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm blanking on the name. It was a racing game that happened on a sort of 3D twisting cylinder. It was very like F-Zero-ish sort of, and it made me sick. Like I actually had to stop and like be like, I'm gonna throw up if I stay in this much longer. I was like, this is really cool, and I need to take this off now. Maybe I'm old, maybe my eyes are not right for this, but
well, there's I mean there are already like lots of people who get motion sickness just from non-VR first-person games.
I've
like
had
that's already a thing
before,
that is. Oh, so this is just like upping the ante there.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I'm worried about that. I mean, I've been worried about it the whole time. Oculus has been, something that people have been talking about the last couple of years. I've been worried because I've had that experience not often, but I've definitely watching someone else play a first-person game. Never. Yeah, exactly. Watching somebody else play a first-person game on a big enough screen, I will get sick. Like I need it to be like
watching someone else
computer screen or something.
You're not,
and potential
you're not
sickness.
actually,
Potential sickness in first person was introduced to me for the first time when I went on the Walt Disney World Aladdin VR experience.
Oh no!
I didn't get sick.
Oh god, just like I was imagining just a churro and a chicken leg.
It's funny that it's just the same problems that existed forever because they had those magic carpets and two of them had like gyroscopic like actuator things. So, like as you moved, they would sort of swoop around.
Right.
And two of them didn't. And I really wanted the swooping one, but I couldn't have it. And they were like, "Oh," and I said, "Why do you even have them that don't move?" And they said, "Oh, because people kept barfing on them." So
that's like the Ferris wheel at California Adventure at Disneyland, where they have it's a Ferris wheel and there's two lines. Yeah, there's one that's like normal seat, and then it's like swinging gondola, and it's like stationary gondola, swing gondola, and you look at the Ferris wheel and you're like, oh, it's like a charming swinging thing. No, like everyone who has gone on that I've ever talked to is like, you will barf forever. This is the scariest fucking thing I've ever been on in my entire life, and it's a goddamn Ferris wheel.
Yeah. There's nice, slow little,
And there's no, like, they don't indicate at all that it's, like, a terrifying experience. It's just, like, they've got a cute little, like, 2D line art drawing.
It's not that scary, but imagine if you went on that Ferris wheel with a VR headset.
Oh, my God.
Of you swinging Aladdin in the opposite direction.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, the vomit. Ugh.
So
anyway,
what else happened at E3?
Not vomit-related at E3.
Oh, well, I got nothing.
I almost vomited from happiness a couple times.
That's awesome.
Isn't that like a marketing line for that Illbleed game on Dreamcast?
Oh, God. It probably is.
It's like shit with fear, puke with pleasure.
You'll vomit with excitement. You'll puke with pleasure. You'll shit with fear.
Yeah, that is
I
correct.
think you're absolutely right.
Splattered brains. Infected flesh.
That is Illbleed.
Yeah. I don't know. It was E3, like we had to go because Firewatch was being shown, but I came back from E3. Thanks. I came back actually enthused about a handful of games, and
which ones?
Cuphead.
Oh man, I've been really excited about Cuphead for a while.
Yeah, really excited about Cuphead.
Crazy.
Cuphead is a like 2D action game that looks like sort of like an iWorks style, old school, almost like pre Mickey Mouse
era animation.
Animation looks pretty great.
It's like the old like Bosco Warner Brothers cartoons.
Yeah.
It's like pre Bugs Bunny cast Looney Tunes stuff.
Yeah. It is like legitimately hand animated, like cell animated in the traditional manner. It's crazy. It is like the best execution of that you could imagine. Just everything about it is incredible. The colors and the style of animation and the way that it doesn't so frequently games like that, when people try to capture that kind of aesthetic, you see the seams in the animation. Like it just...
you adopt that style, but it just looks like Flash animation. Everything's tweened and sort of just like nothing actually moves right.
Right. I mean, it's really impressive. It's really, really, really impressive.
Yeah, so I can't wait for that. That's up there. Excited for Tacoma.
Yeah,
Hell
really.
yeah.
It was nice to see more from Steve's game.
And Fulbright.
And talk to him about that. Then... Gosh, the Sony press conference actually just blew my mind because The Last Guardian looks sensational. I just can't wait for that game.
Sure
I
does.
cannot wait for The Last Guardian. Last Guardian. Obviously, Uncharted 4. I'll play that game because I'm a sucker for big action expensive games.
Uncharted 4 had probably the most successful failure of a demo in the history of
Absolutely.
demos.
That was so
Sure
odd.
did.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that.
But just the fact that happened was, I think it was.
Well, what
really
happened
actually-
was,
it
it went after the cutscene. They have a really beautiful cutscene. Nathan Drake looks out over this like favela or wherever they are. It looks like South America somewhere, and they cut into
like
the character
And it's
model.
a chase scene.
Yeah, it cuts into the
That's
character
supposed to be-
model, and like
It
he's like,
cuts, but they don't cut because it does the thing.
doesn't cut, it just drifts.
It does the thing that
Oh, you're right, the camera
Uncharted does,
yeah.
where the camera never cuts at all. It goes smoothly from the cutscene into now it's third person playable.
right.
Yeah.
And everybody went, oh, it looks like the cutscene.
Yeah, and the guy runs away, and then Drake just sits there breathing
Breathe idle.
quietly
Yeah,
to
it is idle
himself.
animation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it restarts once. So he stands up for like 10 seconds, and then they restart it, and then it happened again for like 2 minutes, right?
No,
No,
it was just
The second
oh.
time, yeah.
Maybe it
Maybe you
was
watched a
Amber.
novelty GIF of it.
Yeah,
No, he sat there for like what seemed like 30 seconds, but it was probably 10 seconds, and they restarted the whole opening cutscene again, and they went.
I think his controller was dead.
It's not even that it was dead, as that he picked up the wrong one. I read a thing about it, but just
no.
but that game was so impressive looking aesthetically that
Yeah.
had there not been a person playing
On stage.
like on stage, you wouldn't know what you were looking at. I think as far as just the dollars on screen,
or if it didn't fail, because if it
Right, well,
didn't
yeah.
fail, you would never know if it was a canned
It- yeah,
video
exactly.
with someone pretending to play.
it failing. That's what I mean when I started this. Is just like the fact that Drake just sat there behaving like a shitty video game character for a second when no one was playing. I think was really helpful because you get 3/4 of the way through that demo and they're just like crashing through streets and just like it just looks like. It just looks like the most expensive movie if they had decided for some reason to CG animate it instead of film it with live actors.
Right.
And then you just remembering, oh, if he stopped playing right now, he would just sit there breathing like an idiot again.
he also
It was like-
played really well. Like obviously it was very, very,
that guy's
very,
job
very,
for
very
a week
rehearsed.
must have been playing
Yeah.
it.
Probably
But
more than
man, there was
Yeah.
some stuff in there like I would have clipped on that. Like I would have hit that. That would not look as cool if I was playing it.
Yeah.
They let press, I think, play that thing.
Yeah, we were supposed to play it, but we came home.
Yeah, we came home.
Yeah.
So maybe there's less impressive captures on various people's websites.
I was just really excited that like the beginning of the Sony press conference was just really
Well,
creatively
Shadow of the
expensive,
Colossus, yeah.
creatively ambitious games of all different flavors, from No Man's Sky to Dreams to The Last Guardian. Totally different schools of design, different aesthetics, different everything, and none of them scream like mega hit, but were treated like they were going to be. And I think that's like.
But
really
none of
great.
them, you don't mean none of them. You just mean some of them, right?
What do you mean?
Well, because Uncharted 4, it clearly.
Right, I just meant those first three that I mentioned. Uncharted 4 is obviously they put
Okay,
that at the end of the press conference, and that's going to be millions of dollars, obviously. But
That's what
like
E3
nobody
should
knows
be.
what Dreams
Yeah.
is really still. Nobody really knows what No Man's Sky is really still. But they're really just they're so ambitious and so interesting that I felt really just uplifted after that, which is strange. Even though I had to sit through 7 minutes of blops.
Blops.
Oh man,
Bloppers.
you do not want to watch somebody play blops in a sports arena with a really nice sound system. It is
Yeah, no.
traumatic, to say the least.
The thing that I didn't get to play it because right as I got in line for it, they shut it down. But I've since watched videos of it, and I love the trailer. Is Super Hypercube, which is
Oh, that was playable?
yeah, it was at the Morpheus booth.
Oh, man. All I saw was the teaser trailer, and I assumed it was just going to be forever until
No,
I saw
the
anything.
teaser trailer, which is, I mean, it's Polytron and I guess Kokoromi, which is like another group which Phil Fish is involved in, are making a VR game called Super Hypercube, which looks very much like old 3D 3D Tetris spin-off games. It doesn't look like it's mechanically complicated. It's just a 3D shape is falling into your collection of shapes. And all that it's using is the head tracking element of the set to be able to sort of just look around and navigate the space slightly 3D. But it has the aesthetics. I mean, it from the trailer and from the gameplay footage that I saw, like if anyone remembers the Fez 2 teaser that Phil Fish put
Oh
out
my
last
God.
year that was just fucking amazing, laser beams and space and just like 70s sort of just like sci-fi synth and like the game seems like it's just that. Like it seems almost like the descendants of Jeff Minter or something, basically, where it's just
That's
like
awesome. Yeah.
really simple gameplay, but
And much rather cleaned up Jeff Minter.
yeah, but you're inside this weird, like, one-point perspective neon light array that then turns into the crazy psychedelic sequences from 2001. I'm really excited about it because I want more VR stuff that is like that. I want more
VR that looks like what you think of when someone says VR.
That's true, but I also just think, like, the first thing that everyone
Space
tries
punk
to do
VR.
with VR is, like,
Recreate reality.
you're inside of an alternate world. Like, shut up. Just, like, put me inside of a sweet neon light show with a Tetris block. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But the trailer for Super Hypercube is an amazing teaser. You should look at it. Also, whatever. I'm glad that somehow Phil Fish is doing stupid video game things again.
Yes.
He announced that very, like, quietly.
I'm glad that it's kind of this sounds, I don't mean this to sound negative, but like, I'm kind of glad that it's a mechanically unambitious game.
Yes.
Not because I think Fez was not a good game. I really liked Fez a lot. I played a lot of Fez, but because I really like, I would like to encourage the idea of someone who gets kind of put in the like auteur category of video game developer doesn't always have to make, like they shouldn't always have to make a game that's like a character going through a journey and it's like emotional and like
could
a
this
filmic
game
way.
upset
like,
their previous magnum opus? Like, no,
right,
shut up. It's Super Hypercube.
Like he wants to make a crazy thing with colors. Like that, I like that, and I wish that were. I wish that there was less like sort of passive discouragement of that kind of.
Oh, I think also one of the reasons that Super Hypercube might be as constrained as it is because it started off, I guess, unsurprisingly for a thing like this, as I believe
a Kinect game.
No.
Oh,
F that. It predates Kinect. It started
even then because that also was a Kinect game for a while.
Yeah, it was announced as a Kinect game, but I think it was prototyped as the put the two IR beams on your head and your Wii remote on your TV motion tracking thing that everyone got.
Oh man!
Remember when everyone got excited about that?
Yeah,
how you could
there
do
was
homemade...
like a period of like 6 months where people were doing all that crazy
right, but I mean,
shit
if
with
you
Wii remotes.
think about the mechanics of this game, which is just peering around an object, that's a perfect fit for that like Wii remote head tracking hack. Yeah. And I think this started either as a game jam or just as a prototype from people being excited about that in like 2007 or 8.
You know what's so funny about that is that so many of the games that make use of this hardware are either games that are like just unrelated and they have like tie-in functionality with that hardware, or they have a version made for that hardware, but like they were conceived as just games that you can buy on just whatever normal system, or it's like here's a thing that is being commissioned by the hardware manufacturer for that thing, and it's like very much always tied to that thing. This is a very, very rare example of a game that has just always been meant for head tracking, but not one brand of like head tracking solution. But like first it was for weird homebrew Wii remote helmet. Then it was for Kinect because that was around. Anyway, that's gone now. So now it's for Morpheus. Like weird. That is. I don't think there's probably not a single example.
Super
of
Hypercube will actually ship for the holodeck. It will actually be developed. It'll be Phil Fish's dying game release.
God, that's so awesome. I just want to concur and agree and say that this E3 was really exciting. And it excited me, and there were more things that I actually want to play total than last year. Last year, I liked the Nintendo stuff, and there were a few like indie things that I thought were cool, like Never Alone, a few other like smaller games. But this year, I actually felt like I actually want to go out and play these games that I normally wouldn't be excited about. Like, okay, well, I would be excited about this, but the Dishonored 2 reveal where, like Emily is going to be a main character now. I was souped, and I really liked Dishonored, but I kind of fell off Dishonored.
That character design is so good.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's really good.
I'm not going to lie. I did a little cut of like all the women characters that were sort of shown, and that was another sort of trend at E3 was like there were a lot more women protagonists shown, or like women playable characters, which was so awesome, and there were more women on stage actually presenting stuff too, so it was like feel good about this is awesome.
There were some big piles of bullshit, but it's the usual stuff.
Course.
But in general, I walked around the show floor, and especially on like the first party South Hall, like man, it was just kind of like exciting in general. Nintendo's booth was awesome.
Felt like there was energy,
so much good stuff in there.
Like in last year, I was there last year, and I typically go to E3. This is the first year I haven't like physically been there in 6 years. There just felt like there wasn't much energy last year, and in this year, just judging from sort of what I saw and what my colleagues told me, like it felt like people were actually excited to be there, playing games, which is nice. Like E3 should be the Vegas of games, but that doesn't have to be a horrible thing. Like this year kind of proves that. Like, let's show the big guns, but let's also like celebrate that and feel good about it. So
cool.
I have a pocket I have a pocket in my pants. No, I have a.
Is there a party?
Is that a pocket in your pocket? Or
I have a thing that I was wondering about this year's E3 that I have not considered well enough to be like a fully formed opinion.
We're gonna call this amusing.
It's amusing.
Not like I'm amused.
No, okay.
Well, I think it'll be amusing.
There are a lot of people who are sort of, I guess, like my peers or people sort of our approximate collective era of being in the games industry, for whom this year's E3 like rates mysteriously high.
Oh, I have an idea.
And my question is, do you guys think that is actually because we're at, and this kind of inadvertently dips into some other conversations that are happening with Tale of Tales, which I don't mean to be getting into hard right now, but I'm wondering if right now the notion of indie game design from like 2004 to 2014 or so, it seems like it is we're moving out of that and now into an increasing number of really high level games, like high level like public perception games that would have been under the radar indie hits a few years ago. We've got more and more teams the size of the one that we work at Campo Santo,
12 to 15,
and a lot of console hardware manufacturers signing exclusive deals with indie games that would have previously just been third-party published 6 months later on Xbox Live Arcade or barely made it on Steam. Do you guys think that the reason that everyone is liking E3 now is because we're in a place where everyone is just part of E3? Where, like, basically we're seeing a lot of indies now cusp into being a 2015 version of what used to just be small commercial game developers.
Yeah.
Like, we're all just inside of it now, and that's why we're liking it more. That's my, like, sort of pessimistic question, and I don't have data to back it up.
I don't know if that's necessarily pessimistic, though. I mean,
I don't know.
Do you think that's like on balance bad?
Well, I also don't even know if that's what's going on entirely. I only have tiny bits of evidence, and they're really personal. Like
you're the worst people to make that.
Well, I know, because I'm in a place where like I haven't been to E3 for 10 years, but now I have a game that is still small but bigger than a previous generation indie game in a Sony keynote. Steve Gaynor had never been to E3 in his life, and he was there to go on stage and present his like not quite 10 people, but increasingly large companies' product, and there's a lot of people now who are in, like, I mean, even Phil Fish has a game here, but it's like a game locked into a first party distribution deal, and he has a team of multiple people behind him on this project.
Soma was on the floor, and there was a bunch of
I don't know
level.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mid-size I mean, I think when you say everyone is part of E3, I think what you mean is the mid-size indies. Yeah, but that is a thing that didn't really exist several years ago.
Right,
so
and if you were a mid-size indie a few years ago, you were on Steam only, basically.
Right. Yeah.
But it seems like not quite publishers, but like big, like Microsoft and Sony have sort of taken the place of publishers for mid-sized indies because you can get a distribution deal, or like a just sort of a partnership.
I mean, it's probably attractive to Microsoft and Sony because the days of getting huge AAA games as console exclusives or even timed console exclusives are basically gone.
Like Tomb Raider is not going to come out on just the Xbox or just the PlayStation.
Exactly. Yep. And so they can afford to run a certain amount of their business more like HBO or something, where they can invest in something that is more of a prestige product that obviously they still want to be profitable and successful and get a lot of people playing it. But a big part of what they're doing is creating a portfolio that says, look at what we have on our console, and that is, really marketed towards the kinds of people who pay attention to all this stuff and are really tapped in and are hopefully, looking for a broader range of experiences than the stuff that makes it all the way to the $50 million.
Yeah, they're
AAA.
trying to have a diverse portfolio for their hardware as reasons to buy the game or the system.
And that ends up working well because that's getting to be a bit more of a flexible ecosystem than it used to be, in the sense that most of those deals are no longer like infinite exclusives. They're timed exclusives because probably, I imagine, what those platform holders have found is that past the few months of timed exclusivity, the returns diminish heavily on it being exclusive to their console forever. They just want to be able to get out there first and get it in your brain as being associated with their machine.
Right.
And that's kind of a nice knock-on effect for these mid-sized independent studios.
Yep. It wouldn't surprise me to see those first parties and bigger third-party publishers making, like, I don't know, mid-sized independent. These studios would then not be independent, but making like the $3 to $5 million budget bets, because
that would be nice.
It just very much wouldn't surprise me, because at one point you're going to see games continue to succeed at that budget, and then what do you think any publisher would pay for the Bastion IP? You know what I mean? It's like they want to start making those bets because the value proposition is so high if one lands, where it's like, oh yeah, we greenlit 15 $4 million games, which isn't a ton of money for somebody like, EA. And if
that's a Call of Duty marketing campaign.
Right. And if that yields like an IP that they would then obviously own, I think that's something that they obviously have to be thinking about.
Square is starting to do that with the whole don't nod.
Yeah.
Thing.
I mean, I wouldn't be.
Life is Strange, and now with their vampire RPG, stuff like that. I feel like, that's just beginning to emerge. And
that's the thing that I would kind of worry about, is that we kind of get into another cycle of mid-sized studios in rounds of layoffs being treated poorly by publishers because they're taking this money that's much more like at the level that they should be taking it. I mean, when we were like looking to raise money for Firewatch, like no publisher would give us what we wanted. Like that's the range that we were looking for, and it was just like 20 million or get the fuck out. Or if you're making
an iPhone game.
Or make an iPhone game for $250K. Yeah. And we're like, what? It was like impossible to find that money 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just wouldn't surprise me if that started to happen. But I don't know if I think the consequences of that could be good for the consumer in terms of there just being a lot of games around that size with like cool, like creative, unique indie studios, but I worry about it as a sustainable practice.
I think it's almost guaranteed to be a cycle, and I don't have a whole lot more to say about this, but it feels very much like what is being published as sort of like indie plus games that are getting picked up by console manufacturers and probably in the very near future publishers, at which point the cycle will be complete, is like an evolution of like N+ or the original Spelunky or just early indie games that managed to make it onto
Xbox
Arcade, or like even just like Alien Hominid, the first Behemoth game, or like early Edmund McMillan stuff like Gish. Like
you could torture this sort of parallel even further if you go back to things like what happened to the shareware developers in the early 90s.
That's what I was. That's exactly the. Okay. That's. I mean, I was going to torture it exactly that far of just like looking at the evolution of those games up through like Super Meat Boy, up through the nice version of Spelunky, and sort of the people who have been caught up in sort of as that has become a viable financial situation, including our company. But like, it seems like the next step, much like it was for small teams turning into small independent shareware developers turning into teams with an office that churn out a bunch of games. Right. Yeah. Or Toys for Bob. You'll eventually turn into Toys for Bob, and then you eventually get acquired by Activision. And like, it feels like that cycle is. We're at a good point right now, but I suspect that
right. I'm happy right now, but I don't know, man. Ask me in 10 years.
It could be it could go into the mass production.
The other thing that sort of makes me personally sad is that I sort of feel like I followed the wave that I am a part of, but I have no idea what's happening inside of the next cycle right now. This E3 has made me realize that I'm completely out of touch with whatever 5 to 10 years ago equivalent of like true indie development was. Danielle, I think you pay more attention to it than me for sure, because you talk about games that I've never heard of on this podcast. Games. But like, there are clearly just scenes that I have no idea what they are right now, and it's a bummer to me.
Well, I feel like there's an even more of
it's a bummer to you that you don't know.
That I don't know that exists. No, not that I'm glad that it exists.
Jake, you've become the man.
I'm just an old man now.
You're the man.
It's weird.
Now you're the
man now, Doc.
You are, because you just said that.
You guys want to take a break?
Yeah, we do. And then video games.
Video games. This week's episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Zoom, a video conferencing service that makes it very easy to get video, screen sharing, group messaging, everything you need to run an online meeting with other people elsewhere in the world very easily. It works on Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, and whatever video hardware you already have. The Zoom team has attempted to tackle all of the problems with lag and bad video and unintuitive interface and all that kind of stuff. Go to zoom.us/thumbs for a free account. That is right, a free account.
We're going to try this because we currently use a solution to talk to the dudes in England, mostly, in Nels in Canada, while making the game all day. That is suboptimal. So I think Zoom is going to get...
We'll attempt to optimize with Zoom.
We'll increase our optimizations, yes.
Zoom.us/thumbs.
That URL is just for us, by the way.
That's the point. Video games. This episode is also brought to you by the Midroll. The Midroll is our ad rep service. And if you go to podsurvey.com/thumbs, you can take a demographic survey that will help us understand what our audience is like, listens to Idle Thumbs, and will hopefully help us continue to get advertisers that are relevant to
like
our
Nature
audience.
Dipes.
Like Nature Dipes, exactly. Classic.
Or Hover
advertiser.
Undy.
Yeah.
Pod Survey.
Weird. podsurvey.com/thumbs. Oh, and you could win a $100 Amazon gift card. So, give that a shot.
Whoa. Amazon.
I'm going to enter
Pod
today.
Survey.
You're
Host's not eligible to enter.
Video games.
In the future,
Dipes.
podsurvey.com will be like a surveying service that comes out and makes sure that your underground,
pod is clean.
that your pod is like up to code. not gonna
I don't have a pod.
not gonna die in like a solar lead storm or whatever
Yeah,
the fuck that
it's
we're
it's
subjected
the
to.
new Fallout game is what Pod Survey is.
I thought you were going
Will
to
be.
suggest that a pod that just gets like implanted in you when you turn 13 or
Apocalypse.
something. You've got to get it serviced every 5 years.
Oh, you're talking about that's some episode 1 shit. You know what I mean?
Some episode 1 shit. What?
Sebulba and Pod Racer.
Bulba.
No,
Oh,
he's talking
what?
about Logan's Run or something.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Okay, of course. Sorry.
Yeah, your like personal operations device.
Bulba was an
That's
extra
exactly what it is.
in Logan's Run.
The pod survey actually just asks you, how are you... What kind of, are you having a positive experience with your pod? And if you say you're not, you're euthanized.
You just die.
Kills you. You're like, well,
it
let's
just
make
burns white hot until
Yeah.
your just nervous system is ash.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good
Pod
system.
Survey. I love Idle Thumbs.
Are we back?
Let's be back.
Yes.
Let's be back.
All right.
It's good to be back.
I'm happy to be back.
It's great to be back, guys.
It sure is.
Stupendous.
Stupendous and momentous.
I want to ask you to elaborate on something that I saw you. So here's actually the best thing about E3 for me.
Yeah.
The best thing about E3 for me was that I got to hang out one-on-one with Jake a lot.
Oh.
And then we drove back from Los Angeles to San Francisco together.
Oh, did you take the nice coastal
We
route?
took the 101.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
okay.
quite nice. We
Very,
stopped
very
in
nice.
San Luis Obispo.
Not all the way out to Highway 1. Highway 1 would have been like a 2-day.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a little,
quite the
little, little more too romantic. Anyway,
Yeah, it would have
Sure.
been. It would have been
little too much.
salt. It would have been nice. It would have been my dream.
Yeah.
But it was nice to get to just hang out with Jake as his friend for a couple days because we never get to do that. And I saw Jake get very excited about something that I want you to talk about.
what did
Was
I
it
get?
the Yokai
What?
Watch?
Nintendo,
Which part of Nintendo?
Mario Maker,
Oh my god.
their
Oh,
entire
man.
press conference.
What does it have to do with the drive?
Basically, after the I was just around him.
I was just-
in the afterwash of this.
I was just talking about Mario Maker. Okay, so I think we have to stop talking about E3 after this.
Okay,
Because
We can't.
we're gonna talk about all the games you played then.
Yeah.
Oh, great!
No, I didn't really play many.
I know.
I
I was with you.
by proxy played like an additional 3 hours of Neko Atsume, but
Beautiful.
Japanese cat watching game. Anyway,
I want to play that actually.
By proxy, do you mean you watched Dana?
I mean, I watched Dana play it.
Yeah,
I've just
yeah.
been sitting near
Is
it
this-
ambiently.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, we talked about it a few
We've
weeks
talked
ago.
about that.
What
yeah.
what platform is that on?
iPhone and Android.
iPhone.
iOS, Android, OS. Did you guys watch any of the Nintendo stuff?
Yes.
Because I don't want to talk about it too much, but it was
press
kind of the best. Like earlier before the break, I kind of poo-pooed a little bit of the enthusiasm around E3 by just whatever is going on in my brain. But I do attribute some of the sort of positive attitude around E3 to Nintendo's presentation, because Nintendo just said, you know what? I mean, I guess they did a like stream keynote thing separate from this, but their big like amphitheater event was, we're bringing back the Nintendo World Championships, which was the thing that started off as like a mall tour in the early 90s and basically ended in a questionable version of the Wizard. So their keynote-esque presentation was a bunch of game consoles, and I guess it sounds like the contestants were a mix of just randoms as well as speedrunners and YouTube streamers.
Oh, crazy.
And they would just say, like, okay, we're going to play, like Smash. And then we're going to play a game that we are announcing at E3 that we are releasing in the future. So everyone now has to play this game. Now we'll play Balloon Fight or whatever. And like, it was just really, really happy to watch. Like, it was just like a very modern Nintendo at its best, good version of this. But they closed out, instead of showing a never before seen game like you close out the Wizard or what your childhood dream of a big Nintendo event like this would be, they closed out with Mario Maker. Yes. And I've been kind of cool on Mario Maker. Mario Maker is just, it's a level design toolkit for Super Mario Brothers. I didn't entirely understand what it was. Like, I'd seen different art styles, and I thought it was just different theming. It apparently is not. It is just, you can make levels that have the tile set and movement mechanics of Mario 1, Mario 3, Mario World, and New Super Mario Brothers. But also you can just flip between them, so they remade all of the aesthetics for all of them.
It's really cool,
but, so the final challenge of...
Wait, so did that mean they added mechanics into the Super Mario Brothers 1 world to allow for...
that is the case. You can have like giant enemies, or you can just bring in...
And there's like butt stomps and things like that.
I think the moveset stays the same per game you're playing in, but it means...
Oh, right, but it looks different.
Yeah, but you can switch which moveset and tile set you're using. But anyway, so the way they closed this out was they loaded up what looks like World 1-1 in Mario Brothers 1, and then it was revealed to basically just be an internet troll level that was made by Nintendo of America's QA team. Like, they walked through like 3 screens of it, and then there's just a wall of, like the blocks in Bowser's Castle that have like the 5 fireballs in a circle that sort of spin around like a wall of fire. It was just a wall literally of that attacking the entire height of the screen, all just like slightly out of sync with the flag behind it. And then the pipe that you're on, which is usually not a pipe you can drop down. And then it sort of did a like Stanley Parable Portal-esque thing where Mario just fell out of the sky at the beginning of the level again.
Oh no!
But then it just goes fucking nuts, where it's just like 5 enemies on top of each other that are then spawning double-sized versions of other enemies, and just like weird, huge leaps across parts of the level that are barely visible. And it was great to watch because it was 2 Mario speedrunners, I think, were 2 of the last guys left in this thing, or 2 people who have just done Nintendo speedruns before were like good. And they just ate shit so hard in the first couple runs, but by the end, it was just being at a Nintendo keynote at E3 and watching people just destroy what are clearly like the most difficult officially Nintendo sanctioned levels ever made was like, okay, it was just good.
That's awesome.
It also made me really like Mario Maker, because like it by showing this stuff where it was clearly the guy who works in the Nintendo Treehouse, which I guess is like the Nintendo of America localization group, who made all these levels, was there as one of the commentators, and just like it showed that the level of just complete insanity that you can achieve inside of that software, while still like adhering to the rules of Mario, is really strong. Also, apparently, a rule of Mario Maker that I did not know, unless we talked about this before, is you have to, before you can post a level online, you have to be able to beat it.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
so you can make
that's a classic user-generated.
It's but like those Mario troll levels, there's no regulation on any of that stuff on the sort of like homebrew stuff. But with this, but yeah, it was so cool to also just see like the most fucked version of like the sort of seminal Mario games as well. Like, I don't know, that's awesome. It was really cool. That, I mean, I'm not going to talk about this because I've talked about it at least twice on this podcast before, but that reminds me very much of the like Mario graphing calculator scene that I was part of. It's that, but like officially sanctioned. Oh, and then there was a surprise twist at the end where they all knew they were going to get a trophy, but of course Miyamoto was the guy who showed up and handed it to them, and they just lost their minds. And it was just like
awesome.
It was just like happiness times infinite a million, which is like
a large number.
I don't know. I like that that's Nintendo's E3 presence, because like what are they going to show that's going to resonate with that audience at all? Just fuck it. Just have people playing their video games and screwing around the way that last year they just had a Smash Brothers tournament. Like, whatever. That's a good use of the Nintendo keynote, you know?
Was this where the puppets were? I saw like a Muppet.
That was their
thing.
digital event. That's like their thing that they broadcast
that was
as
their
press event.
Yeah, their press event was like a
thing.
Nintendo Direct thing, and it was
great.
way. You liked the Nintendo?
I
Direct?
liked the Muppets.
Yeah, the Muppets were good, but I like.
Oh, I mean, like in terms of actual quality, it had nothing on last year because last year they had Splatoon, they had Toad, whatever, Captain Toad, Treasure Tracker.
And
they had
Zelda,
a bunch. They had
right?
Zelda. They had a bunch of like really strong games. This year it was like Yoshi Amiibos, which are really cute, and then like there's an not F-Zero,
Star
sorry.
Fox.
There's a Star Fox
Yeah,
game,
that game
and
looked
there's
awesome, by the way. We
a
watched people playing
Metroid
it.
Hunters game, which is like nobody was like really all that.
Yeah, no,
And
but
then
it's
that
like
Twine
stuff-
Yoshi game, that Twine, that
Yeah, that looks really cute.
Yoshi's.
That I'm
Twine
excited
Yoshi
about.
game painted a weird picture.
Oh, you're thinking like
you are Yoshi.
Twine
Go left.
Yoshi.
Yeah.
Like,
hello, I am Yoshi.
Erotic Yoshi fanfiction Twine game. Yeah, not quite.
Nintendo announced erotic Yoshi fan.
Twine mode in Mario Maker.
My lord.
Oh my god.
Watch out now. But the coolest part of that, I mean, it was really hit or miss.
Yeah, it has Mario 1, 3, World, New Super Mario Brothers, and my live journal.
Yes. Yes.
No, it's not my personal live journal. It's just called that's the mode.
It's just live journal mode.
Don't go to my live journal.
Whatever. My uncle who works at Nintendo is in there.
Giant page of text, one choice at the bottom.
There was actually
It's a
really
me Mario.
Yeah. I like it. There was a really cool moment where Miyamoto was actually showing off his old notebooks, like the graph paper that they used to design the actual
I saw
like
pictures of
80s
those.
Oh, yeah, I've
levels
seen those, yeah.
of Mario. It was just very level designer 101, but this was actually this wasn't like a conception. Like the side scroller was very new when there were actually like exploration elements of like how they taught the player that, the mushroom that comes down from the question block is good because you can't really jump away from it if the player's still sort of getting used to the controls, and the little Goomba is the bad guy. It was just very, very cool to see that, and you see the actual little illustrations and the graphing paper and stuff.
Yeah,
I dorked out over
It's all really
I
cool.
thought that was
It feels like Nintendo this year at E3 was in a really good place where they didn't have anything to prove, but they also weren't in a place where they felt like they were supposed to be like hubristic shits, which is
totally.
those are the two bad ends of
that's
Nintendo where they're
true,
like,
yeah.
everyone's going to love this Wii U. Shut up, no one loves it. Or like, all you want to see is more
Wii Sports.
waggle
Whatever.
controls.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
just like the worst Nintendo are when they're at those 2 points, but they're like right at the
Right in
like
the middle
apex
there.
of like
Yeah.
being kind of comfortable. People
That's
are
basically
into them,
what the GameCube was for a lot of its.
Yes, the most of the
Totally.
GameCube's life cycle is that, which is great.
Just like good, comfortable, just like we're making good games on this thing.
Yeah, and it feels like that's where they're at, but like they're really like that. Just their whole press presence felt like it embraced that in a way that just felt aside from, apart from everything else, but not like combative or
Right.
deliberately like trying to like disrupt it or
Yeah,
whatever.
it doesn't feel like they're like jockeying for other platforms. Like
No, they're
fans.
just doing a thing, and it was
You
really
know?
cool.
People go fucking ape shit over Amiibo.
Oh, they do.
Well, all those ones. all
People
the
were just
Skylanders, like Disney Infinity. Those things are all
elbowing each
Oh,
other
yeah.
to take photos of like the limited
the
edition
Yoshi.
Amiibo that were at the Nintendo booth.
The Yoshi one is real cute.
Everyone
Not
wants to
gonna lie.
set a figurine down on something and then watch it do a thing.
It's Amiibo. It's Amiibo. No, it's
Amiibo figures.
I wish the plural was Amiibo or something.
Amiibo boo. Amiibo.
Would you,
You guys want to do some reader mail?
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I was gonna ask about games, but
No.
I think it's
Why don't we let the readers ask about see you guys.
our Jake robot is broken.
Okay,
Oh
okay,
no,
okay, okay.
Jake bot.
Speaking of robots,
I am one.
Ollie Moss writes,
Hi, Ollie.
"Hi, Thumbs. Apparently, Jake, he asked this question of you and then decided to send it in. The discussion of neural nets in last week's episode got me thinking. A prevailing theme of post-singularity science fiction is the idea that using archived data, personalities from humanity's past can be approximated and recreated as simulated intelligences. Obviously, the bleakest version of the AI apocalypse is that in which the robots use over 250 episodes of Idle Thumbs to digitally resurrect the cast of the show and then force them to keep producing premium content indefinitely. In this nightmare scenario, whose simulation do you feel would be the most accurate? Would Sim Jake just be a Mario referencing fart noise making Allard obsessive? Which accent would they settle on for Sim Danielle? Ollie.
I think Nick Breckons would probably be.
No way, Nick Breckons would
the
not be the
least
most excited.
recreatable.
No, because I feel like
all.
his darkness is on the surface.
Nick Brecken's Idle Thumbs like amalgam neural net AI would not be the most accurate, but it would be the villain. It would be like if it's the story of us being resurrected, he's the one who turns and then like creates the DarkNet of just Breckons or something. Like
An army of Breckon AI.
Yeah, but I don't know who the most accurate one is. Probably Steve Gaynor. Steve's just Steve.
That's true. What you see is what you get with Steve.
Yeah,
There
just
it is.
Steve.
Take that, Steve.
That was a surprisingly easy question to answer.
And
I didn't
his
think we were
prediction
gonna
for what
arrive
my
at that.
robot would be is correct.
Would mine just say, I played a lot of games. Do you want to hear about them?
They would have to create fiction. Like presumably they wouldn't have any
Create
need for
fictional
video games
games,
anymore.
yeah.
So they would have to like keep inventing.
So there would just
new
be like
games.
an
I played
itch.io.
Soul Blaster 7. It
Yeah,
was cool.
exactly. Just
There'd be another robot creating itch.ios. Like,
That's
by
what
the
it
minute.
is.
yeah, sort of like natural language assembly robot that just uses like itch.io with like 10% weighted Moby games.
Unfortunately, whenever you say okay, it sounds like Toad.
Okay!
You've said that more than you've said okay in a normal human voice.
true.
What would actually happen is that would like get averaged out with the rest of your accent and just weirdly introduce like 0.5% of Toad into everything else you're saying because it doesn't
Sound
understand.
like one of the puppets from Labyrinth.
Oh my god. That sounds interesting. We should experiment with this.
We should not.
No.
No, we should.
The future of this
You're
email
right.
will be
shouldn't
contributed
do
to by us.
Paul Carroll writes, "Hey Thumbs, something I think about a lot when playing games is how well they communicate a sense of scale. Not like huge monoliths in the distant scale, but how real your immediate environment feels. Modern games have gotten really good at creating consistent, believably scaled worlds. Are there any older 3D games that did really well at this? Do you think tools have improved over the years, or have developers and designers actually gotten better at creating 3D environments? Thanks, Paul Carroll."
It feels like it's still hard.
It is hard.
Like, it feels like people are just better at it.
I think also
I don't think there's no quick tricks to get that stuff right.
There's no quick tricks, but as the amount of detail that you can have actually modeled in the space has gone up, I think that the sense of scale has slowly gone to be more real, because like the older the first person shooter, the bigger the doors are, and I think that's partly just because you couldn't ever get close to any of those things. And just the speed at which you move in all those games is totally stylized. Like the world is just almost seen like in pastiche
that's true.
in big old like in GoldenEye or like original Counter-Strike even, or like Quake. But now I think player movement speed has gone way down, so you can hit a smaller door target as well, and also the level of detail has gone up, and you often see characters' hands in the games. There's all these things that sort of make you have to make
Contend
things
with scale.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what it means is you have to like still make the scale artificial in some ways so it doesn't break other things that are now in your game.
Yeah.
But if you do that carefully, it can be really cool.
But I mean, like even in Gone Home, the doors are still bigger than they would be in a regular house, just because you have to contend with the fact that you're a big bulbous capsule collision object blundering through a space using a keyboard and mouse, and not a person who can sort of like artfully move out of the way of something. So I don't know.
Scale is still the thing I have the most difficulty with as a baby dev.
Well, it's also just hard to get right in a drawing. Like scale is just hard to get right anyway. Like
Scale's tough.
conveying and representing scale just as like a cartoon is fucking hard.
Yeah, that's correct.
At least in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah.
Artists and designers are smart. In conclusion,
Not that smart. Doors are still really
Smarter
big in
than
video
me.
games.
yeah.
That's your like big. You have a bugbear.
What is
about
wrong
that.
with this door?
I'm a rare
That's why
person.
Firewatch is outside. No doors.
No doors.
Our doors are actually, I think, the right size. They're a little big, but they're close. But I think
Jake
it's because
was a real stickler about this.
it's because I'm a rare dummy, I guess, who actually looks up often when I play first-person games, because I'm always just interested in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I always go through a door and look up and just see like 5 feet of space above
I
me.
know.
It's
It's
like,
always really
fuck
weird.
off. This is
So,
just stupid.
Yeah, it's
It doesn't mean it. Like, just make it shorter.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Brett DeVille writes, "Hey Thumbs, question for Chris here, though curious to hear other examples. I am a fellow New York Times Crossword app player. Chris teased he would discuss the app on episode 215, but didn't get around to it. A few months ago, I upgraded the app and discovered that they are now tracking various things, including how you do on the puzzles on average, etc. They've also added tracking of your streaks, how many days in a row you have successfully completed the puzzle without hints, and before the day ticks over." He didn't mention that part, but you don't get a streak if you do it after, I guess, midnight Eastern time. I found that this negatively impacts me on occasion when I forget to do the puzzle or end up doing it very late in the day. If it breaks that streak, I'll often skip a few days afterwards out of pure despondency. This is ridiculous because I quite enjoy doing the puzzle, but it happens. I'm not usually put off by how I do against the average time, but that streak counter guts me if I miss a day. Do any of you experience this either with this or another game? I know Chris Heckler talked about this with regards to achievements years ago, but this is a different thing. Achievements are only positively gained and never taken away. The only other thing I could imagine that is similar is if you started falling off of daily leaderboards or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, yours in black and white, Brett Duville. Yes, Sean, that is a broad reference to Casablanca.
Yeah, I know.
Beautiful.
He's really mad at me for not having seen Casablanca.
Okay.
So mad that he sent me the Blu-ray.
So I'll answer this first with
That's nice of him.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, it's a good movie.
He's a mensch.
I'll answer this with respect to this first, and then you guys can chime in with other examples. Yeah, that is the thing I was going to talk about the New York Times crossword last week, is that, as he says, a couple months ago they updated it and they do track all those stats. And I love the streak. I really, really love it.
Of course you do.
Well, because the
100
thing
days
is,
of Spelunky over here.
yeah. Well, okay, actually, I want to draw a comparison to that exact game.
I know.
Because they actually ended up being very different for me in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, they're actually not as similar as you might think for me in the streak, like sort of effect on my brain. But so with the New York Times crossword, the reason that it has not had the impact on me that it seems to with Brett is because I've already been doing it every single day without fail for what I would guess is like 5 or 6 years now. There's not a single day since I started doing the crossword that I have not completed, and that doesn't mean I did it on time. I very frequently
You've completed every New York Times crossword for 5 years.
Yes,
The Sunday was really hard this week.
the Sunday wasn't unusually hard for a Sunday this week. You're right.
Yeah, I'm got
It's got a
third of it done, and it's just I just kick.
It has
ass.
a cool like gimmick thing though in it.
Yeah, I haven't cracked
You haven't
that
got,
yet.
yeah,
That's my
it's cool.
problem.
Once you get it, you'll be pleased.
Okay, good.
Well, man, I don't know if you will or not, but I was pleased. Anyway, so because of that, I'm
still
already
reeling.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are months where I'll look back on the month and there's like 7 puzzles that I have to clean up. You know what I mean? And that is like that's
a bad month.
They're all like
clean.
Thursdays and Fridays, the fucking hard ones.
or Saturdays more likely, which is the hardest. Yeah, but
Oh god.
but I've got although I do a round trip plane flight every week, have done every week this entire calendar year, and so that actually makes it much easier. But anyway, the thing I was going to say is that because I'm so accustomed to just getting the crossword done, usually by the end of the week, usually I don't let it go for a month, but the streak is more like a cool thing when I do a good job of it, and I actually get it done on the day. And then when I break it, it's like, oh, well, that sucks, but I was going to do this anyway. Like I wasn't, you know what I mean? It's not as though the streak is incentivizing me to do it in the first place. It's like a bonus if I do better. It is a huge bummer though. Sunday, that puzzle that you pointed out, this week's Sunday I broke a streak of about 2.5 weeks, I think. My previous best streak was 34, which I know because it always tells you what your best streak was. And I've only gotten that far once. Like Brett, I also don't find the more granular stats to be like, I don't ever go look up at my average Wednesday time. Like they track your average time for each day of the week. But one nice thing is that when you finish one, if let's say, you finish a Thursday in 32 minutes, and then it's like, that was 7 minutes and 42 seconds faster than your average. And that's kind of a nice thing when you see that. I don't go and like check out.
You have enough data to where that number is actually meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is when they introduced this, they must have been tracking this for a while, because when they introduced it, it was already backfilled with like, you've completed, mine was like something like 68% of puzzles in the kind of first day time limit. And I'm like, holy shit, that's just been they've been like tracking that the whole time. They just didn't have a front end interface for it. That was a depressing thing because I instantly started off with a number that was like much lower than I would have wanted it to be. So anyway, compared to Spelunky, which you brought up, Spelunky was like the total opposite of that experience for me. I started doing Spelunky in September of 2013 and didn't miss a single daily challenge until I think May 11th, 2014, which is when we went on the Campo Santo Yosemite field trip. And like, obviously we didn't bring computers or anything, it was a hiking trip. And at that point, because I had been so like, because my only real experience with the Spelunky Daily Challenge ever was this unbroken streak. Suddenly, now that the streak was broken, it felt like the entire web like was just snapped, and I'm like, well, guess I'm done with that. And it was, I haven't done a daily challenge once since I've played the game.
If you hadn't
twice.
gone camping with us, you might have been playing Spelunky before we recorded this podcast.
It's possible. I probably would have missed one since then, but it really was just like spells broken, bam, that's it. It was total cold turkey. I didn't have any like sort of flare-ups of like, oh, maybe I should try. Nope, I was just done. Mm-hmm. So it was very different to me than the crossword streak for that reason.
I have two questions
Yeah.
about this. The first one, I have one question and one observation. The first is a question.
I look forward to your observation.
Yes, it's an observation about these tracking, creating chains of things, phenomena. But the first one is a question about, like, legitimately, if they're tracking this kind of data, the next time, we have a World War II scenario, we need really smart people. Are they going to go in and find people who are really, really fucking good at puzzles and things like that?
No, mind the crossword time for code breakers.
Because it doesn't make you good at anything else. Like, that's in its
well, maybe not crossword puzzles, but
if the Zodiac killer shows up again,
that's where you got to watch out.
I don't know.
If there's weird ciphers, the New York Times Crossword Puzzle app switches into
Zodiac killer
mode
is
2.
using, like,
telling you,
strange historical factoids to lead us to the bodies. It's like, who was the prime minister of Poland in 1949? Yeah.
This could be useful information.
But that's still more like a Jeopardy thing. The crossword stuff is weirder than that.
That stuff's always in there, though. Like, so much, like, I would say a good third of the crossword is just, like, factoid.
Yeah, that changes by day. But yeah, but that stuff is also in Jeopardy and Trivial Pursuit. The stuff that is unique to crosswords is just like weird, obscure words and like alternate spellings and like crazy acronyms and just like odd bits of language. That's the stuff that's like,
I love those ones.
Particular to crosswords that isn't also true of like trivia games.
Yeah, I guess we know that if the Zodiac came back and was like a 21st century Zodiac, they would just release like a Drop 7 clone.
Numbers.
It would just release the numbers version of Drop 7.
Because of Zodiac?
Yeah. Oh, man. It would be...
you gotta brand it.
NUMB3RZ.
Big Z. My observation is that...
People just think it was
observation.
My observation. I have very mixed feelings about tracking apps and things that... So I joined this chains.cc thing because I was on
What is chains.cc?
It is just an app for tracking how long you can complete a chain of doing something every day.
Just and literally anything?
It could be anything.
So the app doesn't know what it is. You're just...
Right.
It's relying on you to be honest
about it.
You
set it, you tell it, and there are groups online where you can like show your chains off or whatever.
Like,
I did this
like
because
toothbrushers or
show
whatever.
Your chains off. That sounds like a busting a move
show
of some
off
kind.
Chains right now. Floss them up.
Yeah.
I don't know why I sounded like an old man there. Floss your chains. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're
okay. I was
hip hop guy is apparently
clearly is.
You're just like a local news anchor reporting on the latest fad.
And this is the thing. The kids are doing.
Local teens are flossing their chains. Don't know what that means? Ken Bastida reports.
Ken Bastida. Yes. I signed up for one because I was on the Dancers podcast and they created the Dancer Size Challenge, which was exercise every day from then. It was some point in March until E3. And I couldn't keep up with this thing, even though I have had a 18-year streak of not missing one day of exercise. Like, I never, ever, ever in my life, ever since I was 13, this was March of 1997, that I decided I would do this. I would work out every single day because I wanted to be tough and strong.
Well,
I was weird. I was 13.
I guess.
And live forever.
I guess. I want to live a healthy life. But, like, I can't be bothered to actually put it in an app. Like, it bothers me to have to do that. It annoys me on some level. And I'm like, this is distracting from my true purpose in life.
I totally,
you have the same feeling?
I totally relate. The only reason it works for me with the crossword or with Splunky when I was doing it is because that was the actual thing that I was doing.
Yeah.
Every single time I've tried to establish that kind of tracking, like with an extrinsic thing, I just forget about the tracking part. I totally it just falls off for me always. Yeah.
It just feels like a nuisance. I don't know.
Just barf.
Anyway, barf.
Well, guys.
Is that it?
Speaking of nuisance.
I think that sounds about right.
Well,
it sounds like an Idle Thumbs to me.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening. You can find our website at idlethumbs.net/idlethumbs. Best of all websites.
Yes.
We're on Twitter at idlethumbs, and you can send us questions if you want us to answer your reader mail at questions@idlethumbs.net.
Sean, what is this episode called?
Oh, well, I was hoping we were going to talk about The Last Guardian a lot, and I was just going to call it The Cast Guardian. Sorry.
Oh!
But I didn't really going to talk about that too much. I really want to talk about it a lot.
Maybe next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Tune in to episode 217, The Cast Guardian.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Illbleed.
This episode of Idle Thumbs was brought to you by Zoom, a full-featured, easy-to-use video conferencing service. You can go to zoom.us/thumbs for a free account.
A free account.
A free account.
A free account of the events of this podcast.
You can discuss them with the Zoom video conferencing solution.
It's true.
Yeah. Zoom.us/thumbs.
This is real. Coming this winter.